take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
I'm a human being, god damn it! My life has value! It's time to ask yourself what you believe.
Mass murder, torture, perjury, embezzlement, fraud, deception, treason. These are just a few of your many crimes against humanity. You will not win this war, for you are fighting the very essence of humanity.
Hi, welcome to Truth or Talk. I am April Bowden.
And I'm Virstyne Henry.
Please visit our website at truthertalk.com, where you can find all of our archived shows, our Conspiracy Realist t-shirts, Truther Rants, our essays, etc., etc. And, etc., etc. Done most of it is done by the lovely Virstyne Henry. Hey, Virstyne.
Hey, what's up?
Nothing. Your website looks great, or our website looks great, thanks to you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, well, you do the editing, please.
No, I know. Well, I know, but I barely got into that website, but maybe like once or twice when you walked me through it. But yeah, it looks good. We had a show earlier today. We were on Souvenir Event, who's also our fellow, our peer at UCY TV, and he was saying how great your website, or how great the website looks. So it just reminded me to tell you that
thank you.
And I think it looks fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah.
It's hard work, man, but April does the editing too. I want people to know that. So she does the editing, and that's a lot of hard work. So it's cool. I mean, it's really you learn a lot doing stuff. It's very frustrating. It's very time consuming, you know. But anyway, I'm rambling. Hello. I'm excited because our guest today is he's going to be talking about free energy. What do you think about free energy?
I think that sounds like a great idea. I hope that it works out. That it's truly free. We have, I think we were talking about we've had our friend Liam Sheff on the show several times, and he's said that such a thing doesn't exist. But we want to talk to somebody who maybe has a contrary idea about that, because I think it would be great if it did, don't you?
Yeah, don't you?
And if it does, I think it would be really, really awesome. So, I mean, I don't know how they make the machine, so when they say it's free, like, do they just mean that you don't pay the electric company? Because it seems to me like you would still have to pay in some way to either buy these machines or, the materials to make them. So there would be some sort of, it can't be completely free, no?
No, you can pay for, I guess you can pay for a machine, but they have the plans out. And what they're doing, basically, they've gone to about, I want to say 3 countries. I know they went to Morocco and they went to Taiwan, and they dropped one of these machines off there. And they got them working, and they left the plans with engineers to try and make them better. And the plans are open source, so people can go on and they can try and make it themselves or improve on it. And supposedly, once you make one and you attach it to your house or wherever you live, you don't have to pay for the energy itself. It creates energy. You won't have to pay like a bill from the electric company. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, because I think about it. I was talking to my students, and I was saying, isn't it weird that we have to pay for things like water and electricity, and gas, and not. I mean, that's in the gas, but it's very interesting. It's very weird, We're the only planet, we're the only species on the planet that pays to live on the planet.
Yeah.
It is weird. With paper and metal that we can't even eat. We can't even really, it's insane. It's insane. So I just
so
thought.
Bizarre.
Oh no, and I wanted to say too. I just thought the fact that they were going around from to different countries and they have the plans open source. I thought that was very interesting and very it made me really optimistic, because I've always said that You know, you hear these stories about somebody having an idea for free energy or a car that, you know, can run without, you know, on electricity, without any gas, or, you know, that's on water, on trash, or whatever. You hear these stories, but you hear when people bring up these ideas, they always get, like, axed off, or they take or the government gets bought out by the government. So, like, all of these, like, urban myths, you're like, is it really true? Does this really happen? You know, can it really exist? And anyway, I think it's when people get axed off, murdered, it's because they're one person in one location, and then they can, like, squelch that secret, right? So it's like, if there are people popping up all over the place that have the same plans and the same idea, it's harder to squelch, it's harder to stop.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's true. That's a good point. It's I think I don't know if you ever saw this documentary. It's called "Who Killed the Electric Car," and
no.
And they had explored there were a few people, you know, along the process of our developing our dependency to oil, who had come up with other alternative ways to fuel your car, and one of them was the guy who invented the diesel car. And, you know, I want to say there was some suspect. I could be misquoting it, so please double check my references on this and see the movie, or see the references that are provided in the movie. But, yeah, it looked like they were kind of leaning towards the idea that these ideas were killed, and some of the people were in the process of trying to come up with alternative sources of fuel for cars, because it wasn't just the electric car. I mean, there was a lot that came before that was that they were looking at in other ways to get cars running around. So I don't know, like you're saying, you know, people often they're alone, they're a lone ranger, and so then they get bumped off. But if a lot of different people are coming up with it would be harder to quash. And, you know, and certainly I like the idea of not forming a cult, but a community. Yeah, yeah. It could sound like it could be cultish, but communities of people who are going to start to become independent and sovereign and not, and being able to do this stuff on their own. And so I would, I'd like to see that.
And pass it down, you know, so we don't lose it. And, you know, I mean, it's sad. This is the stuff that we should be learning in school. We should be learning about energy. We should be learning about how to grow food and how to innovate and do all this stuff, not the stuff that it's ridiculous, things that we're being taught today. It doesn't leave us independent. It doesn't leave us, you know, and it leaves us in a position where we can be basically controlled and manipulated.
Yeah, it's true. And, you know, and you're talking about, I mean, all the various things, ways that we can empower ourselves, and how we talk on our show all the time about, you know, health. And that's one way I think that people can take control of and empower themselves, you know, through their educating themselves, through, you know, learning about, you know, free sources of energy, not always asking for permission or asking for help to get these things done. It's so bizarre that we pay for, you know, water when it's free and accessible, but we're paying for it, you know. We like the convenience of having it filtered and piped through and all of that. But it's nevertheless, I mean, then they're starting to do things like make it illegal to collect rainwater or things like that. I mean, it's that's kind of ridiculous, you know.
Yeah, it is. You know, I didn't hear that they're making it illegal to collect rainwater. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, there are some places that have banned collecting rainwater. Let me see if I can Google that really quick. And
1984. Oh my God, we're. That's my theme. This, like, I just feel not theme, but I just feel just lately. It's like, wow, we're really here. That's great. They're going to charge us for air. They're going to charge us to breathe air.
Well, wasn't that the whole carbon credit thing? I mean, it's like, let's charge you to breathe.
Yeah.
Because we're going to charge you just to carbon, just to exist, and you can't help but to use carbon dioxide because that's just what comes out of us. We breathe oxygen in, we expel carbon dioxide out. So we're just going to, you know, charge you for that, and that's that.
Oh my God, I got so moted. You're right. They're charging us to. They're charging us for air.
Well, I mean, I
put it that way. It's true. is true.
Yeah, it is true, but the carbon credit thing, I mean, you're not moated because it hasn't happened yet, but that is the idea. That was the man-bear pig.
Well, it passed in Australia, though, right? I mean,
it did pass in Australia, yeah, but it's not in this country. But and I just found the article. It was a couple years ago, in 2010. Mike Adams from the National News wrote an article about how in some states it is illegal to collect rainwater. Utah, Colorado, some places and he very eloquently puts it's all about the control, because of course it's all about the control. They want to tell you it's for your own safety, like maybe it's not safe or it's not, filtered, but it's coming straight from the sky, so it doesn't need to be filtered, for one. And then if you wanted to take your health into your own hands, for better or for worse, you should be able to do that. Why would why should they be in control of you in any way? It's like, it's so bizarre how this goes on. We're doing this for your own good, but I mean, as a person, as an adult and a human being who can make those kinds of decisions, shouldn't you be able to say whether or not you want to eat food off the ground, whether or not you want to collect rainwater, whether or not you want to, whatever, it's like, it's your business. It's not my business what you do.
Yeah, it's disturbing. It's very disturbing.
It is. So this whole idea of free energy, I think, just gets us a little closer to the idea of independence, from government and asking for permission to do things. And so,
you know what I hate? Speaking of energy and greenness and the green Nazis, I hate the parking spaces at Fresh and Easy that say hybrid cars. I always park in them, and I don't have a hybrid car. But I think it's so. Now there's a space for women and children. I leave that alone. I get that. Okay. I don't park in handicap spaces. Okay. So it's not like I'm just being a rebel. I don't agree with following laws or rules I don't agree with. But I think that there's rules that should be set in place and followed in order to maintain, peace and order and things like that. But I think that sign for the hybrid car, the parking spaces for the hybrid cars are one of the most pretentious things I've ever seen.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, you have to have a hybrid car, to be green and to be, help and safe or helping the environment.
They're so expensive. They're so really expensive. People that are poor cannot afford hybrid cars.
They're really expensive, and they're not completely oil independent. They are not completely independent of oil, because you still have to use oil
to make the car.
To make the car, exactly. So it's in the tires, it's in everything. So it's really like, give me a break, These guys acting like they're so cool and that they have a hybrid car, so they're like above it. It reminds me of that South Park episode where they were where everybody in the town had bought a hybrid car, and then they became so smug and snooty they all had to move to San Francisco. It was like,
no, I didn't see that.
Oh, it was so cute. It was the smug, and it was just so funny because everybody became so smug and snooty. They liked the smell of their own farts. They bottled them and put them in a glass. Like a wine glass, and would smell them, because that's how snooty they became.
Those guys are brilliant.
Because they all adapted. It was a good observation, because it's like how snooty everybody gets because they buy a hybrid. And the green Nazis are not the way to go either. It's good to have real solutions.
Yeah.
So this,
rather
than these things, just to make you feel like you're all hoity-toity and snooty. And it was funny because before we started recording, we started talking about, we both had seen recently the movie Jobs, about Stephen Jobs. And just speaking of that, too, it reminds me of the whole snootiness that goes between people, the Mac owners versus the Microsoft owners. All this whole division. Yeah, and the Mac owners think they're so enlightened and so, alternative or whatever. Whatever, own a Mac.
Well, we kind of do. We kind of do.
Well, own the Mac. I have some devices that are Mac, and I have some that are PC. And, and I'm not really thrilled about either. I wish I knew how to make my own computer, speaking of independence, because I don't like neither of those fools.
Yeah. They're both assholes. They both cut from the same... Yeah,
exactly. They're both total. I mean, if you've seen this movie Jobs, it was really funny and interesting because we've all been kind of sold on this idea that Stephen Jobs was this visionary and this really great guy. But if you actually, if you rent that movie, you'll find if the film is accurate, because it's a depiction. It's not a documentary or anything. So depending on the level of accuracy that they provide, he really comes across as like a self-serving sociopath.
Yes.
Who really just was ambitious and a good businessman, but not really a good person at all, and not really that.
And not genius. Not like.
And not a
genius, he didn't invent the technology. I was shocked.
Right. He did.
He didn't invent the technology. He took it from his friend. I'm sorry. I was so appalled. How do we buy into another lie? We bought into another one.
It's true. I mean, how did we? Yeah, we bought into another lie because that was how they portrayed him, because he was the figurehead of the company of Apple and Macintosh and then later Mac. But the truth of the matter is that he just was savvy enough. He was smart enough. As a businessman, but not necessarily as a computer inventor or innovator. Yeah. But as a businessman, he was smart and savvy enough to surround himself with other people who knew how to do that stuff. And then he basically, and he just used those people.
Yeah.
He chewed them up, spit them out. He just took what they had to offer, and then just eliminated them when it didn't suit him anymore. He was a jerk.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's so funny. I had one of my students to tell me that he read the book about him, and he said he wasn't a really good guy. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he couldn't really articulate it to me. But this is probably why.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. So once you see the film, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. You know, I see why this guy's such a jerk. Because once you start to get that he didn't really invent the software, and he, from day one, was kind of really quick and easy to cut his friends out of the loop, you know.
Yeah.
And, I think in the beginning of the film, they show how...
Pong? We were talking about Pong?
The creation of Pong. He's been accredited with the creation of Pong, but it was really his colleague and his friend, Stephen Wozniak, who created it, but he took the credit and he took the money. He paid his friend, not even
it was like
tenth of what he...
Yeah, it was like $5,000 to do the job, and he gave his friend $350, but he told them they were getting $750.
Right.
And he
said that he
took the rest. So you act like you undergone. Huh?
And he just, he said he was getting $700, and then he was going to give his friend half, which was a lie because he actually made $5,000 on it, and so he was just cutting. He had already calculated that he was going to cut his friend out of the loop, and but didn't even have the ability to create the software himself. That was the whole thing that pointed out. He had the ambition to say that he could do it, but then when it came down to actually doing it, he didn't have the know-how to do it. So that's where he called on his friend who was kind of the exact opposite, who had the know-how but didn't have the ambition. So you could say it would be a good partnership if he had been fair and had been a good friend to him, but he really wasn't. He wasn't a good friend to anybody. He just used him as long as he could, and then if he didn't need you anymore, he threw you out. So I was kind of tripping on that, and it just sort of, I think, just seeing that reminds me of how easily these things are manipulated, and how, you could just be... they kind of set you up to have this, exclusionary, but that's just sort of the propaganda. That's just the advertisement. That's the Edward Bernays, engineering of consent. They want you to think that you're special for buying a Mac, but really you're just, they use slave labor. They use all kinds of weird crap to create their product, and this guy was never a saint in any way, shape, or form. Not that I'm a fan of Bill Gates either.
They're both the same they're assholes through and through.
Right.
They're both jerks.
And Gates, we've talked about him many, 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 many times on the show. Loves to depopulate. It's his favorite thing. He loves to use vaccines to, take people out, and he loves to kill African babies. It's his favorite thing in the world. And, he does. He likes it. He thinks it's cool. And he does that through his constant promotion of vaccination, his constant promotion of HIV testing, his constant promotion of geoengineering, his constant promotion of Monsanto, GM seeds. And, and this guy, it's so funny how he's been labeled as this philanthropist. But they touch on this a bit in the film Jobs, and I think I haven't seen the film that was made about Bill Gates. I would almost like to see it now just to do a compare and contrast to see if they portrayed him accurately. But they did. There was a film about Bill Gates as well, and I think everybody knows, because he got sued, that he stole, constantly was stealing software ideas and innovation ideas from others. And so these guys are horrible. So I think I would love to know how to build a computer and not have these guys and not be dependent on either of these fools. That's a lot cheaper that way too. I have I'm looking into sending my son because, as I mentioned, as you know, I'm planning to. My oldest is going to be homeschooling next year, and my oldest, my 11-year-old, who's going to be entering the 6th grade. But we're going to be doing it at home, and I found a local school that teaches classes on how to make your own computer.
Is it just for children?
I know, right? It is. It's for kids, and they have...
If I bring children, can I... can I...
I know, right? It's like, it sounds really great. You can actually... it's called You Build It, You Keep It, and it's for kids 12 to 17. So he won't be quite old enough at the beginning of the year, so we'll have to wait till he has his birthday and turns 12. And it's not a very expensive class, and it's basically you get they take donated computer components, and they learn how to just put them together to make your own machine, to make your own computer, and then whatever you've built through the course of the class, you get to keep. So you can actually have you can walk out of that class in 8 weeks and have a working computer. That's pretty dope, right?
I know. That's wonderful.
I know. I like that. I'm jealous. I'm like, wow, that sounds great, but I'm stoked at the same time because, it not only will teach him something that's very, very useful, but also to have the appreciation of how it's done.
Yeah.
And, little kids don't appreciate that stuff.
Oh.
He's broken few computers here and there, so it'd be nice to give him the idea of how it's done and the hard work of it, and maybe take a little more pride and ownership once you create it yourself.
Oh, definitely, and just the confidence that you can do something so intricate and it can be done too. It's really going to be good.
Yeah, I think it'll be fantastic. I look forward to him doing that, and it's something that I think he's interested in, which is you don't get a lot to do when you're in traditional school because you just don't, have.
But you
don't have the
loading your brain with other.
Right. Well, it's a one size fits all. It's just everybody gets to have the same education, even though people are very, very different, and the way they learn is different, and the way that they think is different, and the things that they're interested in are different. And as soon as you tap into something that a child is interested in, you tap into their learning potential.
Yeah.
So, but once you say, well, no, I don't care if you're interested in learning that, I'm going to teach you this, then you're stifling them, and then you may end up actually taking somebody who could be a really good student and turning them into a shitty student because you're forcing them to learn something they don't care about.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Right.
That's the problem with the education. Even when I was a kid and you were a kid, I think you had a better experience because you went to a gifted school, but I didn't. I went to a typical public school and it sucked, and I didn't feel like I was a smart person because, well, actually, I did. I just I didn't want to do the work because it was boring. I hated it. I hated it so much.
And the thing about going to a different school, like a gifted school, it doesn't mean it's better or anything at all. But the teachers can teach us in a way that, they can basically, where you can say, they tap into our learning, our interest, right? They're freer to teach what they want to teach. They don't have to really stick with a rigid curriculum.
Right. Yeah,
and it made it interesting. And the teachers were happier. And it was weird because there was animosity, but I remember there was animosity towards the teachers that were in the magnet and the teachers that were in like the regular program, and then the same thing with the students. It was another divide and conquer thing too.
Right.
A tactic, divide and conquer tactic.
It's funny, but we were with the computer thing we were just talking about. that can be seen as a divide and conquer tactic as well. You know, are you a PC or are you a Mac?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Do you own a hybrid, or are you still driving a gas guzzler?
Yeah, fuck you. I'm parking in the hybrid spot.
Yeah, screw you in your hybrid spot.
I dare somebody to come and say something too.
Oh, no doubt. Right?
I would have a field day.
Beauty little hybrid. I mean, are you
Excuse
kidding me?
me, that's not a hybrid park. Your car's not a hybrid car.
No.
What are they going to do? Are they going to call the police on me?
I know, right? Can you imagine the cops coming, or they call the fresh and easy people, or are they going to tow your car? I mean, like, are they really going to go to that kind of length to, like, get you out of the hybrid spot?
Yeah.
It's just for snooty's sake. I find that, yeah, you're right. It's
so
offensive.
You know?
It is. It is totally offensive, but it's the green police kind of thing, you know. So it's funny, but yeah, we're doing a show about free energy today. I'm gonna be stepping out because I have a family day. My parents
again.
Are visiting from again. I have my parents visiting from out of town. They keep coming. So you're gonna interview him, and his name is Brandon. What's his last name again?
Garland.
That's right, Brandon
like
Garland.
Judy Garland, but Brandon Garland.
Yes, and he's a very young man. He's like 26 or so.
Yeah, I'm so impressed by these young kids, too, that are just so innovative and so focused and dedicated. I'm so impressed and proud of them, you know? Yeah.
It's nice to see young people thinking and doing, because, you know, we're so hard on these kids these days because so many of them are just attached to have their face in their iPhone or their you know, pads or whatever they're doing.
Oh, they're hooked on Takis or those awful hot Cheetos, like crackheads.
Selfies or whatever they are, and
yeah,
you know, taking selfies all day long. It's just like gross. It's just weird, and you know, we talk about how the kids are sort of privileged or have this sense of self-entitlement these days. I mean, there definitely seems to be a trend of I think we touched on it when we did those shows about lack of empathy. That's the sort of the trend that we see in sort of this youth culture. Yeah. So when you see these really smart, you know, very dedicated kids who are young, but you know, still have wisdom and empathy and want to see a better world for themselves and for their future children and such, it's very inspiring. Yeah. It really is, and you know, we have our friend Sarah on the show a lot. She's 21, right? And she's just amazing, like 21, you know, but with the maturity of more maturity and wisdom than most, you know, 60-year-olds, 65-year-olds. You know, I mean, it's just amazing. So every now and again, you get these young people who just really, really impress you, and so that's really cool. He's definitely. Seems like a good guy, and he's got it together. His website's really tight. And what's his website again? Do you remember?
I don't know off the top. I have to look in the notes.
Okay, so if you're...
We'll put it in the, it's a little's enough. a littlesenough.com.
Yeah, we'll have it right up, and then we'll probably we'll be able to pop it into the chat room. But if for those who are in the chat room right now listening, so you can check out this guy's stuff and look into free energy if you're something that interests you. So I think it should be interesting to most people, because why not? You know, I mean, I guess like I said before, I don't know if there's anything that's 100% free. I don't want to sound misleading, because obviously you have to buy equipment and things to put these machines together. But nevertheless, it's
you're not going to have to work. It's like somebody like having a house, you know, not having to pay for it, but they have to buy the house. But not, I mean, not. What am I trying to say? Not having to, you know, maybe you get a free house, but you don't have to pay to keep it. But you have to pay to keep it up. You know what I mean? You have to put some kind of investment in the house or in the energy device, maybe. So you're not like in debt, you know, because we're paying for gas and water. You're forever paying, and you know, it's nothing you can pay off. You always have to keep paying.
Yeah, that's right. No, it's true, and you never have it. Like you're saying, it's never paid off. It's never ending, and it's never, you know. That's where it's when people say it's too extreme to call us slaves or intention servants, and then you go, well, when is it ever paid off? You know, when are we ever done? When are we ever done paying taxes? When are we ever done? If we're not indentured servants, then how come we can't finish our payment? You know?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you should be at a certain point, you're free and clear, right? But that never happens.
Yeah.
So if we continually paying for energy and food and water and all these things, and it's never, ever, ever, ever ending, then how are we not indentured servants, And paying for these things that are, as you mentioned at the top of the show, that seem like they should be, provided by nature. So how is it that we're being charged for them? Not only that, how is it that these things are regulated? So as I was saying before, how is it that somebody can stop you from collecting rainwater? Or regulate something like cannabis plant when it's a plant? How can you? But what I'm saying? It's like
it's a harmless plant. Yeah.
Well, it is. It's pretty harmless, but nevertheless, it's like how is it that they can even control that? Just think about that.
Yeah,
like
because it's nature. Yeah.
You imagine if they're regulating basil? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just basil. You put on your tomato and you eat it. It's like, or you put in your tomato sauce or whatever. Oregano. Can you imagine if they were like regulating oregano? It just doesn't make sense.
Or ketchup, or whatever. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Right. You can do things that just naturally grow. Things that you can just put in the ground and then they just flourish and grow. It's weird. I have this oregano plant in my garden that just like is so big now. Speaking of oregano, I'd be so busted if I had, because I got that in my community garden. Man, if they ever outlaw it, I'm in so much trouble. That thing but it's just growing on its own. It's not my fault.
What are you doing? Freeze! Oh no, hide the oregano.
Exactly. I can't help it. I just put this tiny little thing in the ground, and all of a sudden now it's huge. So, do you water it? You're guilty. You watered it. You gave it sunlight.
Yeah.
You let it grow. Jesus Christ!
Yeah,
it's like relax.
Ridiculous.
But it's just bizarre, right? Don't people find that ridiculous? So.
I know I keep saying that, but with everything you say, every topic we bring up, I'm like, we are here. It's crazy.
Right.
I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. But anyway, so we're coming back with
Brandon Garland.
Yes, Brandon Garland. Sorry guys, I'm having technical issues. I'm pausing in and out, so.
But I'm going to take off. I'm going to have a family day, and you're coming back with Brandon Garland, creator, or one of the those who is making these QEEG machines. Is that what they're called?
Well, he's helping, I guess, facilitate it, and yes, with the quantum energy generator machines. He has a website where he's providing information on it. And you can find out more about it. You can get plans, so he's just somebody that's helping forward. They have he's part of an Indiegogo campaign. They're trying to raise money to get a couple done, and so go and see what it's about. A little is enough. .com. And we'll be...
All right. And so we'll take a short break, and then when we get back, when Virstyne gets back, she will be talking to this young fellow, and I'll catch you guys later, because I'll be back for the extra. So please stay tuned. We're Truth or Talk. Thanks for listening, and stay with us.
Bye.
Everything I'm looking at seems crazy. The newspaper, the television, nothing's right. Nothing's telling me what's true. It's like I fell into a bucket of cream and kicked my legs until I became a mouse. What's that about? I'm a conspiracy realist, not a conspiracy theorist. I want a t-shirt that represents me. What? There's one that's available? Go to shop.truthertease.com, says the voice in my head. Shop.truthertease.com. It's not crazy. I'm not afraid to go on the internet and go to shop.truthertease.com. I'm not scared. I've taken out bowling balls that look like you. That's what I said. Straighten out. Get your conspiracy realist t-shirt. Don't make me come over there. You look good. You look good.
Talk of free energy circulates the internet frequently. Some people regard it as a myth. Others are curious about its validity and what it holds for the future of humanity. Brandon Garland is someone who knows to see the change in the world is to be the change in the world. He is someone determined to make free energy a reality. Please welcome to the show, Brandon Garland. Hi, Brandon. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Good. So, Brandon, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am 26 years old, and I got tired of just sitting here reading everything on the internet and not doing anything about it.
Yeah, well, that's
pretty
good.
much where everything started from. I have an interest in, obviously, free energy because that's a game changer. That makes our lives so much easier and better.
How would you say? Could you elaborate more on that? What is your perspective on how it make our lives easier and better?
Well, we no longer would have to pay for electricity and gasoline and all those fun things that we have to shell so much money out of pocket right now for.
Yeah, I know. It's very interesting because I'm a teacher, and I was talking to some of my older students, and I was putting the idea in their head about how crazy it is, how we have to pay for things like water and gas and electricity, because these are things that are natural resources, and they should be, free for everybody. It's nobody invents them.
Exactly. The birds aren't lining up at the gas station to get their fuel to, their food to fly around.
Yeah, definitely. So I came across you because I see that you're involved in helping to get the ideas out there for the quantum energy generator, right?
Yes. That's kind of the fun project that I guess a lot of people right now are working on. That all kind of came about open source March 25th by Fix the World project. Unfortunately, it wasn't necessarily a completed prototype. They had the prototype completed and running at Resonance, but it wasn't actually producing over Unity, and it still hasn't. They're really getting to that point right now, and using the open source, using a whole bunch of collaboration from all over the world to achieve it, as opposed to just one person in a garage in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So that's the idea, and that's kind of where it's at right now, and it seems like everybody's waiting on the elusive over Unity to be achieved, and it's producing more power than put into it, and it's where we're at right now.
So this was originally something that's been adapted from Nikola Tesla's patents, right?
Yes. A lot of it, it's a modern adaptation of his one patent. It's completely different than the way the patent is. Obviously, it was modernized the way it was built, but it still isn't. The engineers haven't quite figured out that elusive getting it into the self-running loop and producing the over Unity. It's really trying to tune it very specifically between a mechanical frequency and an electronic frequency.
So what was the original patent like? Are you allowed to say, how did he build it, and how is it different from the one today?
I'm not 100% sure because everything you look at on Nikola Tesla is subject to so much change over time, especially with all his paperwork missing and certain stuff surfacing here, surfacing there. But for the most part, I don't think this has anything to do with his basic design. This one looks a lot different than if you pull up the open source documents and you see the picture of the patent and the dynamo. Energy dynamo that he called it there, it is completely different than what it is now. This one is actually based off of the WITS ministry. It's an organization that's been trying to do free energy and break that out into the public for a long time. But it's an adapt very similar to that one. And theirs actually is, I've seen numerous videos of it running over Unity. It's self-looping. It's just getting it tuned to that process. I think it has. Personally, I know that there's the consciousness factor and all that fun stuff involved with it, but it's really just bringing all that down into our physical reality and being able to produce something that everyone says is impossible.
What do you mean by the consciousness factor? I think I know what you mean, but I want you to elaborate on that.
Right. This is the hardest thing to elaborate on, so let's see where we go. There's so much about us that is, we just let other people dictate and take control of for us. We don't take control of anything hardly in our lives unless, when you wake up, you start to take a little bit of control. And even when you're first awakening, you're like, oh, okay, I don't really want to do this. It's just easier to remain ignorant. But it's that self-awareness and that bringing that knowledge down into yourself and grounding it and kind of very similar with the way, at least my perception of how the QEG works, bringing everything back into itself and then producing more. It's based off of the toroid, the torus, the awesome donut shape. I don't know if you've ever looked into that. But everything goes back into itself at one point and then goes back out. So it's a continuous flow. If you look at it from like the side view, it pretty much resembles the infinity symbol. Okay.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's the consciousness factor, trying to get back on point. I don't know, it's so hard to explain. Through a lot of like the reading and stuff like you can do and talking with some of the people that are out there working on it, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time explaining it.
Okay, no, I'll help you. I think I know what you mean. Please. I just wanted to know what your interpretation of that was, because there are people that might have slightly different interpretations of what it is to be conscious or awake. But I think that, we've been kept, as humans, we've been kept in a state of ignorance for so long.
Right.
That, we've become helpless, and we've been able to be basically manipulated, and there's a part of me, I believe that it's been done by design. Now, you might talk to some people and they'll say, it's just our naivete, as a human species, and just, the fact that we haven't evolved to this certain, stage in human development where we are conscious and aware of the things that we do and how it affects the world and the power that we actually have. I think it's been done by design. Of course. There's some people I've talked to, though, they're like, they don't believe that the people that are that malevolent that would, put thought and planning into actually seeing that people stay ignorant.
Well, it's horrible to think about. That's why a lot of people are just, it's so much easier to just be like, it didn't happen. Nope, it's not real. And then live just in that unaware state. And it sucks being aware, because it hurts. There's a lot of pain that a lot of people have to overcome when you start seeing some of this crap.
Yeah. You're totally right. And we talk about that a lot on the show too. We just talk about how painful it is, how my co-host and I, when we started becoming aware of a lot of things that were going on, how we actually lost friends, Yeah. And not that we were being like, we're not even really out. I don't think we're really preachy about it. We're just very outspoken about our point of view.
You get passionate.
Yeah, you get passionate about it. We weren't trying to proselytize anybody, but, there's still people that are just, they're comfortable with the status quo because they, also I think it has to do with the fact they want to take they don't want to take responsibility.
Very much so.
And or they don't want to admit that they've been bamboozled, because you have to come to a place where you have to admit that you've been tricked. And a lot of people, have ego issues, and it's really hard for them because they want to think of themselves as smart. I know it's saying if you've been bamboozled, you're not smart. But, it's just like children, right? Children, you can easily manipulate children, but they're not necessarily stupid. Right. They're just naive, and trusting. And I think people should be trusting. Humans should be trusting. It's a shame you can't do that all the time, but that's not I think it's our true nature to be trusting, and I think there are people that have taken advantage of that.
Oh, most definitely. And it's, like you said, with the ego issues, that is so it. Like, I mean, there's so many times, like when I'm working with other people, and it's like I had an idea that I just, I feel passionate about. I love the idea, and it's the perfect idea. And next thing you know, everyone's like, nope, not a very good idea. You get that, bam, that smack in the face where it's like, okay, your idea is just not the greatest, but then that's where you have to be conscious and be aware, and you have to calm down, focus everything, and be like, you know what, let's build this idea, let's make the idea better, and let me listen to what other people have to say.
Yeah, and I think you also have to realize where their rejection is coming from, because they might be upset, too, that you came up with an idea that they couldn't have come up with.
Very true.
They're upset. They're kind of pissed that they didn't think of the idea first, and they're like, they want to shut you down. Whether it's a gardening idea or an idea about the quantum energy generator.
Exactly.
But I think, for us to really progress as a society, that it's going to have to come from a place where we're all working together and we're all educated about how devices work around us. That's what I think was so great about what you're involved in, because you're putting plans out on the internet. You're trying to collaborate with other countries, and I think this is why, when I've heard of some people coming up with stuff, free energy in the past, maybe why it hasn't worked, because, they still try and harness it and keep it for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I guess, thank you. This is finally leading back into where the consciousness factor comes in.
Yeah.
And the consciousness is all that is, so you kind of have to work together to access it. And that's exactly what this project is. It's not one person, it's not two people, it's not just this small group of people just completely shelled off from the rest of the world, sitting here working, trying to figure this out. No, the plans are online. There's internet chat. There's chat rooms. There's websites. There's numerous groups that have been put together, people working on these, trying to get this, to achieve exactly what it's supposed to and help everybody out. And it's not going to be through a company that does it. It's going to be through the people. I mean, the companies had their chances over the last, 200-300 years to bring all this kind of stuff out and do all this. It didn't work too well.
Yeah, people get greedy, and there's a part of me too that wonders if when somebody starts something, if they start off with good intentions and then they're just overcome by greed and it drives them mad, or they were just already greedy to begin with and they don't really care about anybody else. I don't know. I think about that sometimes. Maybe it differs depending on the person or the situation.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. I mean, I know sometimes it's like I'll do something and then you catch yourself getting greedy. It's just like a human emotion. It's a natural thing. And it's like, okay, well, where is this greed coming from? Is this greed coming from out of my ego and for me, or am I really trying to do something bigger and better for other people?
Yeah, I mean, and like you said earlier, it would change our life. It would change so much, and it would be great too, And I've also noticed as a teacher in school that they only teach you a certain amount of math and a certain amount of, they make it kind of very boring. Where I think a lot of people aren't really interested. They don't really know why they're learning math or science and what the possibilities are.
Right.
And I think if that kind of training got into the school system too, we'd seeing a whole lot of innovators and people with amazing ideas that can overcome these companies, or just spread out to the point where people aren't competing, where we are working together.
Right.
There's have you heard of that famous Rockefeller quote that says, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers."
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so basically, and just a teacher too, I look at some of the kids and I see what they're being taught in school, and I teach English, and I also just remember how it was for me growing up. Like, I hated math. I liked science because I saw how it could be applied.
Right.
My dad was really good at getting me involved in science because he showed me cooking can be in science and building things. Or science can be in cooking, or science can be in art, and science can be in building things. So I actually understood how science was applied to life. But when I was learning math, I was like, this is torture. And I know you need math math and science go hand in hand. But when math is separated, by itself, I was just like, why are you doing this to me? I hated it. It was awful. But now I kind of understand the system and how it works and how it's meant to keep people, ignorant and not uninterested in the possibilities that we can achieve with the knowledge that we learn. So.
Right, and like, I guess going back to the game changer aspect of free energy it's once free energy is out there, it got out there because the people did it. One, because the companies obviously aren't going to do it. So it's going to be through the actions of the everyday person that will ever be a reality. And it's self-empowering. I mean, it's free energy. You're not paying. You don't need another company. You don't need to give somebody your value, your money to say, hey, I have this. I can use this. I can use this in my everyday life for whatever means I feel like using it for. You're not asking somebody else. You're doing it. It's from you. It's a very self-empowerment portion.
Yeah, definitely. So just getting back to the QEG, so I was reading the website, and there was a quote that was on there that said that a QEG prototype is scaled to produce electrical power in the range of 10 to 15 kilowatts continuously, and can be wired to provide either 120 volt or 230 to 240 volt phase output. So how much power is that in layman's terms? Is there any way you can break it down?
Yes. When I first heard that, I was just thrown away because that's a lot of power. 10 kilowatts is more than enough to power a house. Most likely you're not, like a modern day house, you're not going to pull 10 kilowatts, say, out of the wall, out of, coming from the electrical lines at any given moment unless you really have a lot of stuff. 3 grown men I lived with, myself, two roommates, we used like 1,600 kilowatts in 1 month. So basically, with this generator running at 10 kilowatts, producing it, it would have produced enough power to power our house in the first 6.5 days of the month. The rest would have been excess power the entire month that we could have, put back into the grid and made a little money on it. It could have gone to the neighbors. I mean, obviously you have to bear the loads in mind and everything with that, but unfortunately at this point it hasn't reached that. It's getting there, but.
So this is one of these per household.
Depending on what it actually produces out and then how much load you're going to take at any one time, you could put them between houses. I mean, and then the machine can also be scaled. It can be scaled to make it smaller, which would produce less power, or it can be scaled up to produce 40 kilowatts, which, you could put a couple of these together and easily power an apartment complex or a cruise ship or whatever.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the scaling part, or like a business building, a skyscraper. It'd probably have to be scaled really big, though.
Or have a lot of them.
Or a lot of them, yeah.
But anything like that's doable, and I guess one of the bigger challenges then, too, is to actually take the power from the core and the generator itself and actually putting it into a usable form of power for an everyday house within the right frequency ranges and all that fun stuff, which is just like you got to step it down, basically, into usable current, which isn't hard. It's just another step, and right there, at that point, no one's gotten to that point yet, unfortunately, but they're working on it.
Is it easy, are they easy to maintain, and do they fix and break easily, or how do you maintain them?
From what I have read and what I've heard, it is not that they'll be that hard to maintain. They should just be able to go. I guess with the prototype that ran for 150 hours, one of the bearings kind of froze up, and it wasn't just producing right, because it produces such a mechanical vibration that this bearing just was not good enough for the, its use right there. So those are the type of things that, through everybody doing it, obviously you'll learn, hey, don't use that bearing, or find a better bearing, find a better way to build it. And one of the cool things is who knows what this is going to look like in a year. Once they get it going, they might find this revolutionary way to just redo it, and all of a sudden it's producing more power, it looks different, who knows? Sky's the limit.
Yeah, I know. That's wonderful. Does the QEG require parts that are petroleum derivative?
For the most part, no. I know I'm assuming there's petroleum in the plastic that's used for the end plates and shroud, obviously, because I think all plastic is petroleum-based for the most part. Some's not.
Well, then that's easy. And I was going to ask, would it be possible to use an alternative? But that would be easy. Hemp or cannabis. Cannabis could be a substitute. Cannabis plants, right? They can make plastics out of cannabis, so that wouldn't be
potentially. I know with this though, there's a lot of structural integrity that goes into the type of plastic that's used here, as well as electronic what's the word? Insulation as an insulator. So I can't say on that, but those are the kind of ideas that could make it better, and the only way to really know that is to test it. So that's why there's never a bad idea. Anybody could start making one of these, and anybody can make it any way that they want to do. And as long as everybody will share with people, as they do that on the internet or on a radio show or anything with other people working on it, you can build upon that idea. And that's the true beauty of something open source. That's why coders use it all the time. Instead of sitting there for 48 hours trying to code whatever you're coding, and then it's just yours. You let other people help you. You let other people figure out things, and then you make it better.
Yeah. Could you elaborate on the quantum field? Do you know much about it, or?
I'm learning just right with everybody else.
Okay. What have you learned so far? Could you elaborate or put into words what you've learned so far?
It's a lot based on the torus, toroidal fields. I would say for anybody that wants to learn a little bit more about it, look up PoE vortex coils with one-stop energies. That's www.stop energies.com. They have some really intriguing research, and it's a coil that's wound around it's copper wire wound around a plastic toroid-shaped thing, and it produces some awesome things. They're still researching it, but once again, it's another project that they're asking for other people to help with. And that's one thing that once I get the 3D printer stuff going, I'm going to start messing with that as well.
Oh, yeah, I saw that, too. I should do another show just on that. That was amazing. The 3D printer.
Oh, man. We are so excited. Like, it's been around for years, but finally it's starting to get into, like, household, tangible form for people that don't have $1 billion.
Yeah, right? And there's still, I think, I saw the TED Talk. I can't think of her name. The woman, she's British. I can't think that her name escapes me right now, but I think they're about 1,600. That's expensive for me, but still, it's better than $1 billion probably.
You could get one in a week for 600. You just have to build it yourself.
So they have open source too on how to.
Oh my gosh! Oh, the whole thing got into 3D printing. Really got into the home market through open source and the RepRap project. It was people that were building it themselves. I mean, it really isn't hard technology. You just have your coordinates, your X, Y, Z axis, and you're depositing, a certain amount of plastic for your design on the platform. It's a lot of technical coding and parts, but it's not hard at all. It's
wow, that's
surprisingly easy. But I think
I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, most of the big solutions to all of our problems come from easy solutions. And I think if we make something hard, we're missing something.
Well, that's part of the plan too. Is to make us think that it's hard,
right?
And to make us think that people that come up with these things are geniuses, when probably all they're doing is just kind of following their heart and their intuition, and not really observation of nature. Yeah, doing what they do, and not listening to people. When somebody has had an idea about inventions of the past, I'm sure there are people like, oh, that's not going to work, or oh, that's stupid. Why, don't even bother. But
I have 20 ideas a day, and 19 people call stupid.
Yeah, but I mean, but if you listen, if people that invent things listen to those voices, or maybe it's their own inner judgment or the voices of other people, that nothing would be created. Yeah, nothing gets done. So I saw that you were able to drop one of these off, and not you, but it was a Hope Girl, and they opened, they had one of these in Morocco. They were able to create one in Morocco, and then in Taiwan. Are there any other countries where?
There's the one in Taiwan that they built, the one in Morocco that they're currently working on. There's one down here in Florida, in Orlando. There's actually a couple in Florida, now that I think about it. Just people randomly building it, making things from parts they have at home, trying to get, to replicate the effects and just help with the research. Because actually getting the core is a little bit difficult, because it's about 150 layers of quarter-inch, really small laminated steel, and then it gets all put together. So it's a lot of layers. It's not something that's easy, and then that has to get wound with copper wire.
Can you wind it yourself, or does it have to be wound in a certain way by machine?
Some people can wind it by hand. It depends on if you want to sit there and do it. The problem with it is you need to. Two of the parts on the generator in the core are 3,100 turns a piece of copper wire. So that's a lot of wire, and it has to be a solid piece. It can't be spliced together.
Oh, wow.
So that makes it real difficult in turning it, especially because you have to go in and it's around a circle. So you need a machine called a toroidal winder, which is great because you can actually make it with an old bicycle wheel, motor, and some plywood. The plans are out there online, and South Africa, they're building a QEG right now, and they built their own toroidal winding machine because they don't have a service down in South Africa to do it for them. So they okay, we'll build it ourselves. We'll take care of it, and then we're going to help out anybody else that wants to build a core, and we'll process their cores for them.
Wow, that's wonderful.
And Canada, starting their build, I think sometime this week. So,
all right.
Yeah,
wow.
They're going to be popping up everywhere, and once they figure out the tuning process and how to get it to produce what it's supposed to, that's when you're really going to see a lot of fun popping up everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
It's going to be really hard to shut down, because when they're just randomly popping up, because you can make it wherever, because you downloaded the plans for free, figured out how to do it, they're just going to pop up. Like,
it's like that. Have you played that carnival game where like the gophers like pop out the holes and you try and hit them?
Yeah.
It's gonna be like that. You won't be able to hit one because another one's popping up out the hole. I don't know. When you said that, it's gonna be hard to shut down. That's the image that I got in my head of that little carnival game.
Yeah, and let me make that image better. Like the whole process is gonna be all those gophers rising up at once, and that's
it.
That's it.
And you're done. You're like, there's so many of them. I don't know what to do. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to get involved in this, what kind of what branches of science should they familiar with? So for people that are just beginning, they don't have a strong science background, right? So and then they want to get into helping to further or build this technology. What branches of science should they familiarize themselves with? Would it be like physics, kinetics, mechanics, electromechanics, thermodynamics, all of the above?
Personally, I wish I took a lot more electrical since I started working on this project. It's a big learning curve, and I'm learning as I go, which is fun. But
and then you'll never forget it, too. While you're learning hands-on, that's one of the best ways to learn. I'm sorry, but go on.
But you're fine. One of the biggest things I would suggest is reading some of the works by Nikola Tesla, because it's great stuff. And he thinks so differently than most modern-day scientists. It's intriguing. There's a lot of, I've read a few of his works now. They're on Amazon for super cheap. I think I downloaded a 600-page book for 99 cents. I'm like, school.
What?
Yeah. I love Kindle.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I didn't even know he wrote books. I didn't know.
Me either. I was just like, it popped up one day, and I'm like, okay, this is like an anthology of 600 pages of his works and patents, a whole bunch of stuff.
So somebody actually must have translated, because what is he, Hungarian or something?
Serbian?
Or maybe he knew English,
I'm pretty sure he knew English.
Okay.
But he came over here in the late 1800s from, I think, Serbia.
Okay. I apologize. It's totally wrong country. That's okay. You live and learn, right?
You live and learn. And countries change names every day, so at least they used to.
They do. Not every day, but, yeah.
We're all human.
Yeah.
We're all human on the inside, so that's what matters.
Interesting. I'm just so excited about this, and with all of the crazy, malevolent things that are going on in the world, it's really, really wonderful to hear about something positive going on, because I think that, you start learning about the malevolent things that you just observe all the malevolent things that are going on around you. You can kind of start to lose hope or become cynical, or, just get into a depressed phase where you're just like, why bother? We're all going to die. Humans are greedy, But this is basically, this is a way to show our potential as a race.
This project right now is huge in my eyes, because it's no longer are people like myself or yourself kind of scared or like, okay, we're not going to talk about this anymore. They're used to, for the last 3 years, ever since like Occupy and My Awakening, it's just been the whole dialogue has changed tremendously, and no one talks about it anymore. But there's groups of people now going around pursuing free energy and trying to build these machines, and they're not scared. No one's scared. If they were scared, they wouldn't be doing it. And no one's talking about it anymore, because it doesn't matter. We're done. Tired of waiting, tired of being scared, and we're going to provide solutions.
Tired of paying high electric bills.
Right. And this generator is the tip of the iceberg, because, if you do any little bit of research into free energy, you're going to come across a whole bunch of other things. You're going to come across Bandini motors and things based on magnets and anti-gravity and all that kind of stuff. And it's like cars. Come on. When you were younger, you probably heard someone tell you, Johnny had a car and it got 500 miles to the gallon, and the next thing you know, the car company came around and took the part off of it. Or you heard some sort of urban
I've heard of somebody God, I was talking to it was a conversation I was having with somebody, and they were talking about, they used to make cars that don't break down, but once they figured out they couldn't really make a lot of money off of that, then they started making cars with problems,
Yeah, well, it's like, so many people have heard of the urban legends of, like, free energy when it comes, not free energy, but it's very similar, the better gas mileage in cars, where you get 1,000 miles to the gallon, 300 miles to the gallon is still incredible. It doesn't have to be 1,000. I'm happy with that. Cars that run on water, hydrogen, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not difficult. It's just stuff that we just don't want to let out because people need their money in their bank accounts, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's a whole nother issue, this whole concept of money and, how people kill and die and are in fear of paper and coin and metal, basically.
Yeah.
Where, God forbid if we ever came to an apocalyptic situation on Earth, you won't be able to, that's not going to do anything for you.
Right? I mean, it's so crazy how much control that has over us. I mean, I guess righteously so, because without money you don't eat, and when you don't eat, you're kind of scared because you could
you're going to die.
Yeah. You're hungry. I mean, dying eventually, but luckily the body can survive for a few days without food.
Well, yeah, but look at all the people you see, and and like when they show you video footages of starving children in Africa, they're not like they're not like thinking, I wish I had $100 bill. They're thinking, I wish I had food or clean water.
A Big Mac is a lot better than $1 bill any day when you're hungry.
Yeah.
I hate McDonald's. So.
But not the GMOs. That's probably another thing that's making them sick is, their food's contaminated and all that stuff.
There's so many things that we could sit here and say that just are, like, so sad.
Yeah.
That suck. And, I mean, come on, what was it? Vermont or New Hampshire the other day just finally passed GMO legislation where they'll label stuff now in their state.
Yeah, and labeling is not enough because,
right?
I think people just need to really, it's going to, like you said, even with like the energy thing, with the food thing too, it's going to have to come down to the people. I think we're just going to have to start growing and making our own food or, being...
it's easy to do.
It's easy to do, and then coming, in communities, and yeah, it is, and it's it's very empowering.
Yeah, I the garden all the time, and it's fun.
Yeah, but you know what, too, I don't think that labeling, personally, is enough, because I just think they can lie.
Right.
They just lie. I mean, corporations and government, they lie day in and day out, all the time, every day.
They're not going to lie. It's a law. They can't lie.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what people say, but I'm just like... But it's just interesting that people are pushing for labeling, and to me that's still a very lazy way of trying to get your point across, because then they're going to fight it, and then they're going to be like, okay, and then they're just going to, say that this is organic or non-GMO, or now we make, that's all they have to do. They can put a label thing, but it's not going to fix the problem.
Well, yeah, and then you read, like, what natural means on the labels. Natural doesn't mean anything. Natural just means that, hey, buy this because we think that you think it is natural, but it's very far from it.
And the thing is, too, a lot of we're in this, and especially I'm just speaking for America, but we're in the state where people are so overworked and so overwhelmed that they don't even have the time to properly educate themselves about this stuff.
I mean, it literally takes either quitting your job or deciding to not really care too much about your job to even get into thinking about some of this stuff. Because it takes
or getting sick too.
That helps.
I know a lot of people have woken up because I personally have friends that have woken up because they got cancer or they got some other disease that was very detrimental to their health and to their life, and they decided to take charge of their life. It's really about taking charge of your life.
Mind over matter.
And what?
Mind over matter.
Yeah, mind over matter, or just take charge, because a lot of people, we've gotten to the point too, we're so dependent on people to do things for us that we have no power basically. That we have the only power we have is making money. So we're using paper and metal to pay for things that we could actually do ourselves. But
I mean, we live in this thing where it's like we're so reliant on outside things money, our food, our everything we rely on so much. But so much, I think that, I mean, from my perception, what I've learned is it actually stems down coming from the inside of us. You know, mind over matter. We can help heal our bodies. You know, I'm studying Reiki healing, and, you know, maybe that's not so much from inside as it is like channeling of energy, but it is very much mind over matter. And I haven't been sick in the last 2 years, and it's definitely been a different mindset towards my body in that regard.
Well, you know, people also get a lot out of, maybe people might think I'm like a terrible person for saying this, but, you know, when you're sick, you can get a lot out of being sick. You know, what do people do? They do stuff for you. They feel sorry for you. You don't have a lot of responsibility. You can make people feel guilty. You know, maybe a few other things. And it's very interesting you say that too, because there was this documentary that I saw a few months ago on cancer, and there are a lot now, which is great. Like there are a lot on curing cancer naturally, but this is one of the best ones. It's called Cancer is Curable Now, and this is one of the best ones I think I've seen, because they really address that fact. Mind over matter, or do you, there were some doctors in that documentary that said, you know, one of the first things I ask my patients is, do you want to get better?
Right. I mean, yeah, it's a choice. I mean, the placebo effect, come on, look at what this little thing of sugar does to so many people. I mean, that's basically, you learn that in school, and you're like, oh, the placebo effect, well, why do we take medicine? I remember thinking about that, like, okay, then what's the effectiveness of these drugs that are going into you? And then you think about it later on. Once you get that awareness, and once you get a little bit of higher understanding, you're like, oh, that makes so much more sense now. The placebo effect is the mind over matter aspect. That whole, like, you control a lot. A lot more powerful than you think you are. A lot more powerful.
Yeah. And I think there's some people that are willing to, that are starting to realize that. I just wish that, you know, the process would speed up a bit.
Right.
But I'm very impatient. I know that patience is a thing I need to learn. So
patience is a virtue, except for when it comes to changing the world, and in which case it has to happen now. Has to happen.
Yeah, like in 30 minutes, right? Very fast.
I mean, and what's interesting that you brought that up. I was thinking about this the other day. The whole, like, idea of an event happening, or, I mean, it depends on who you follow and what you look into, and there's so much stuff out there, but just this one event that's going to change everything, like, all of a sudden, we're all going to work together. You know, for a couple years, I kind of bought into that, but at the same time, I'm starting to realize now that the event is nothing more than us. It's us.
Yeah.
We have to come together. We have to be the event. We have to do the things, because if we don't do them, no one's going to do them.
That's true. But you know what, there is, I mean, sometimes I do think, and I think there's even sometimes, I know this is bad to say that I even wish for something, because I'm from Los Angeles, and I lived through the LA riots. I was, like, right in South Central.
Oh, wow.
When it was going on. So, not, you know, when you saw TV, you saw a lot of people rioting, which, you know, did happen, but at the same time, most of the people, like me and my family, were inside.
Right.
You know, we were under curfew, but you saw people come together and support each other and, you know, comfort each other, and in a way that you don't see every day. And I think that disaster, you know, and same thing with 9/11, I think people were really nice to each other for about 2 weeks. So you're a little younger than me. How old were you when that happened? You probably don't remember.
I was 9/11. I was in like 8th grade. I don't remember what grade I was in. I was in woodshop when it happened. I remember that.
You were at school and you're like,
yeah, we thought we were under attack by the Mexican government. It was, don't ask how that came up, but you know, you're in high school and you have, you know, some friends that are from Mexico, so some jokes went around, I guess, but none of us really knew what the hell was going on. That was like Pearl Harbor. Everyone remembers.
Yeah. I mean, it was such a traumatic, you know, event for everybody, and but I think it was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting too. But not even just coming, like, not the footage when you see the firefighters and other people helping victims, but I just felt like there was a shift in energy where the mentality of people, their mentality shifted, because I think people really realized that maybe, you know, you can go at any moment, and something could happen out of the blue. And I literally, you know, I felt like when I walked down the street, everybody started to make eye contact with each other. Everybody at least spoke to each other. you know, and it wasn't even on the level of physically helping somebody, but I just felt like people were more connected with each other.
Right. I was in Scouts at the time, and our community, like, I had never been brought together more in my community than right after 9/11 with all the things we did in our community just to kind of come together and help us all throughout the, you know, whole ordeal, the whole experience. And then now you have to bring all that stuff back up again and talk about 9/11 truth, and it's just, that sucks the most.
Yeah, I know.
That's the worst thing ever.
And it's a shame that it only lasted 2 weeks, though. I'm saying about 2 weeks. That's the time frame I'm putting on it. But it didn't last for long.
That gave the government enough time to put some spin on it to start making it all about patriotism and trying to start a war.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, it was no longer about this cohesion of people and just their limited potential of what they could do together. It was about, okay, we're going to go get one.
Yeah. But so going back, I think I got off a topic a little bit, but I think that's when you're talking about a disaster happening. You're right. It's you know, we shouldn't wait for a disaster to happen, but at the same time, I can see how if one did happen, how it could shift.
I see why you're saying disaster. I said event. I wasn't necessarily meaning.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I wasn't meaning like something necessarily bad. It could be something overwhelmingly positive. I was just kind of talking about how we're always waiting for something.
Yeah, you're right.
That I think is the biggest problem, because when you wait, nothing gets done. And
that can be applied to your personal life too, not just as a society, but a lot of people in their personal life, they're always waiting for something to happen or waiting for something.
Guilty.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been conditioned to be in that state for so long. It's something you have to practice in order to to get good at, so it's not going to be, it's not going to happen overnight where it's going to be it's not going to happen overnight, basically. So it's something that, as long as you're aware of it, you're like, oh, I'm guilty of it, and then you can go back and, get back on track and stay focused.
But things are speeding up at such a high rate, it's not even funny, it seems like. I mean, look at just technological processes in the last couple of years. I remember when I was a kid, I took a picture with film that I had to go take and get developed. And now everything is on my phone. I don't have a shoebox of pictures. I have a hard drive of pictures.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
I mean, with everything, and then there's so many things that haven't progressed at that same rate. It's like they've been held back. Like, if you honestly sit back and look at some of the technological advances, you're just like, some of this just doesn't make sense. We're so far here, but yet we're so archaic here. Like, cars. Like, why don't we just take out the floors and drive them like Fred Flintstone?
I've thought that, like, by now we would have flying cars. I'm a little upset about that.
My dad promised me that when I was a kid.
He was like, by the time we're in the 2000s, you're gonna have a flying car. I'm a little upset about that, but I guess I don't know if that will happen in my lifetime. But who knows? Everything's going really fast.
I'm sure it will.
What type of technology would that be? Like magnetic technologies, right? They'd have to like.
I'd be willing to bet it would probably be more along like UFO and anti-gravity technology.
Okay.
And that's all controlled by consciousness, which is interesting. Yeah. Have you ever heard of Ralph Ring?
Ralph Ring?
Yes.
No, I haven't. Please elaborate.
You should check him out sometime. Him and I think his wife, they had a really, really interesting video, I think at the BEM conference, and they discussed this. They discussed how you were, like, fly a UFO, and it's all based on your thoughts.
I'm sorry, what is it? Back up. What is the BEM conference?
Breakthrough Energy Movement. Here, let me pull it up.
Okay, yeah.
BEM.
Can tell somebody, if our listeners want to go and check more about that, how is it like BEM.com? What is the website?
I'm trying to pull it up.
You look it up?
Yes. Just go on without me for a second.
You're being archaic. Come on, speed it up. I'm totally kidding.
My Breakthrough Energy Movement. My internet is horrible. You should just be glad that I'm so connected. GlobalBEM.com. It's
Global BEM?
Yes.
Okay, global.
Breakthrough Energy Movement. Some really great stuff on there. But the interview that I watched with Ralph Ring, it was all about consciousness. It talked about UFO technology. It talked about free energy technology. And for some reason, I just remember it. He studied someone that worked with Tesla or something like that. So it's definitely interesting, and I'm not saying that this is 100% the truth, go out there and do your own research, make up your own mind.
Yeah,
but
yeah, definitely.
It's some really interesting things that talk about the consciousness factor of it, and then it gets into like levitation and UFOs, and that that's a big reason why UFOs have been so suppressed and we don't talk about them. How the hell do they power? They don't go to a gas station to get their energy.
I forgot, I listened to a lecture one time and somebody was talking about, another reason, or one reason too why the government is so reluctant to talk about UFOs is because they're going to have to start answering questions, well, how did they get here?
Right? They're not stopping at, like, Sunoco and Pluto.
Yeah.
Cool if there was. I would love to go to Pluto. It would be fun. Anywhere would be kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the sky's the limit with all this stuff. That's what's insane. It's like we're just like waiting for it to happen, and we need more people out there working on it.
Yeah.
Because the more people that are out there, it's seriously indicative of how fast things change. It's 100% correlative.
Yes, and I'm so glad that this approach is taken, to the furtherment of this technology, because it's also like, I don't know, maybe I mentioned this earlier, but I mean, when it was just like one person, a couple of people trying to do it, they would most likely be axed off,
Axed off, shut down.
Shut down, axed off, discredited, but most likely axed off,
well,
I would say.
I would hope that they're not trying to kill as many people anymore.
Oh, no, but I mean, like we said earlier, we were talking about the gopher analogy, the gopher game.
Okay.
It's harder, but I'm just saying before, when people come out with an invention that challenges corporations that are in power and families that have been in power for many, many years, they'll do anything to stay in power, and including, killing people if needed. And not even thinking twice about it, which is very disturbing.
Well, the good thing is now, like, people shouldn't be afraid about that kind of stuff because it's so much more out in the open that now if they do something like that, it just only speeds up their demise.
Yeah.
The beauty of awareness.
Thank God for the internet.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I go missing tomorrow, you know why.
No. I don't think you'll go missing.
No, it's probably just because I don't have the internet, so.
I was like, I haven't heard from Brandon. I've Skyped messaged him. He hasn't returned my Skype.
I'm about to go move across country for a little bit, so I'll be out of reach for a couple days, which is going to be fun.
Okay, so Brandon, tell us, we're about out of time right now, but would you tell us where we can learn more about the QEG and other things that you are involved in? You also have a Kickstarter, an Indiegogo campaign that you're raising money for, so would you please tell our listeners about that?
Sure thing. My website, www.alittlesenough.com. All we need is a little bit is more than enough to change our world. But also, a lot of information can be found on the generator there, a little bit more about me, a whole bunch of information, including my blog. And then there's a link to the Indiegogo campaign from there, which I'm trying to $16,000 to build 2 generators. Both generators will be ultimately given back to the contributors of the campaign, which is so exciting. But the idea is to get all the money together to build 2 generators, to get the parts, and then get whoever wants to help build, the engineers out there that are interested in working on this project, get everybody together and, go forward building 2 of these. So it's pretty exciting. So far I've raised a little over $1,000 of the $16,000 goal. I'm hoping that'll raise or improve a little bit once there's a little bit more validity to the QEG out there. Kind of, I think I might have launched it a little bit too soon, but hey, it's always good to be excited.
No problem. All right, well, we're going to take a short break, and afterwards we'll be right back. Thank you, Brandon, so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hello, thanks for having me on your radio. Even though we're not from a famous rock and roll band, if we were, even though we sound a little like we are, we'd definitely wear a Conspiracy Realist t-shirt, because they're gear, aren't they? Oh yeah, they're really gear. I want to write a song about them. Conspiracy Realist t-shirts at truthertees.com. I gotta think of the middle 8. Shop.truthatease.com. What does that mean? It's the internet. What's that? I don't know. It's a net. It's between things. Shop.truthatease.com. What's that? It's where you get Conspiracy Realist t-shirts. Oh, gear.
Hey there, welcome back. Thanks for listening to Truth Through Talk. So, hey, Virstyne, good talk with Brandon there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, he was really down to earth and very interesting. And you were just talking about at the top of the show earlier how it's really inspiring to see somebody so young that's doing something like this. I mean, anybody, actually, any age. I don't know, for whatever reason, though, I feel like I get inspired by really young people or either really old people.
No doubt, right?
Yeah, because I feel like if you're an old person and you've been, trying to help spread truth and trying to empower people all your life, and you still have your wits about you, like Jim Mars, and you're still like a pleasant person to be around, and you're not like paranoid or you're not like angry. You don't have a chip on your shoulder. I think that's a huge accomplishment too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's really fascinating. And then see somebody so young too. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's really cool. And yeah, there's a good talk you guys were talking about. I think just his idea is basically just help people kind of have more independence and to be able to generate their homes without complete dependence on government or without having to pay a monthly bill and things like that. And that'd be a huge weight lifted and burden off of people if they're able to do that. I don't remember. Did you guys touch on the use of solar energy or anything like that? Any other types of alternative energy during the hour?
A little bit, but not really. We just talked about. I mean, we talked about a lot of other things. We went on some tangents, but I think he did mention that this generator is better and it produces more power than solar energy.
Yeah, no, I was just.
But other than that, we didn't really go into solar energy.
Yeah, I didn't remember you guys really talking about that, and I was just curious because when I was listening back to you guys' recording, I didn't really remember. That didn't stand out to me, but I was just wondering because I'd heard some really negative things about solar energy recently. I mean, first of all, they use petroleum to build the solar generators, plus and the solar panels. Plus, I'd heard that there's been some impact on the environment because of these solar panels. There's the area gets very hot. It's causing like a heating effect, which then creates problems with the animals. Like it was like killing animals and stuff.
Oh no!
So yeah, because I told you my parents were that's why I wasn't on the show. My parents were visiting out of town. My dad was telling me about this because that's what he was hearing about the solar thing, and his idea or what he was thinking is that what's most likely going to happen because we've had our friend Liam on the show before, and he's talked about peak oil and how oil is a finite resource that eventually will run out. So there has to be some sort of alternative source, otherwise everything's just going to shut down. And it may get to the point where everything does shut down and we have to live less with less. That I think that's a quite high possibility, even with these QEEG machines, because it will probably take a while before people start to catch on that they can have an alternative. Just the way things are going, where everything's like hidden from us. So it's possible that we might end up, at some point, just having to deal with less energy. But we're using a lot as it is right now, so I don't think that would be the end of the world. Anyway, but he was talking about this, and my dad was saying that from what he's heard in the mainstream media, there's the push is going to be towards either nuclear or towards hydrogen. And I don't know. The nuclear sounds like a bad idea.
I don't know anything about. I need to learn more about this stuff. Maybe you can have somebody to talk more about this stuff.
Well, I
later.
think Liam knows. Our friend Liam knows a lot about this stuff, so we can probably get Chef on the show and have him do a show about it if we wanted to.
Okay.
Because he's definitely up on that, or I'm sure there's several others. Speaking of that, just our last show, I mentioned that there was a great giant in our movement who passed, but there were actually two, and one of them was I wanted to mention was Michael Rupert,
Oh, yeah.
who was the star of the documentary
Collapse. Yeah.
And that's what made me think of it just now, because Collapse is actually about the peak oil issue and about alternative sources of energy, and he breaks it down right there. He would have been a good person to talk to about this stuff.
You're right.
But he recently passed away. He did commit suicide, as so was said. I don't know if anyone's not thinking something else might have happened. As far as I know, that's what happened.
He committed suicide.
He committed suicide. Yeah.
Even people that think that was suicide.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little. What'd you
Do you
say?
think that there's some people that So yeah, I was saying, do you think that there's some people that think that he might have been suicided? Of course, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there's some people who think that, just because of, given his level of information, his level of intelligence, because Michael Rupert did have, he worked for if you don't know who he is, he worked for the LAPD, and he had a father who was a CIA agent. He had connections to intelligence in the CIA, and he, when he worked for the LAPD, he had, I think what made him first kind of come out to the public's truth movement's eye was the fact that there was a town meeting and the people were saying that the CIA, the FBI, had been importing drugs, crack cocaine specifically, into the urban black communities to control them. I don't know exactly for what reason. I don't think they got into all of that, but there was a conspiracy that they were using this to do something to this population, and that the CIA and the FBI or the FBI had direct, connection to infiltrating these neighborhoods with drugs. And so Rupert said, yeah, that's true. He came out and he was a whistleblower. He said, yes, it's true, it's happening, I have intelligence, I worked in the LAPD for, 15 years, whatever it was at that point, and I happen to know for a fact that that's true. And so that's where he came from. And then I think after that, after he spoke, the people at the town meeting were very vindicated. They felt very good that, this guy who was an insider spoke out and really told the truth. And they felt like, wow, we're not crazy. People are listening, what we're saying is real. And then from there, he had he started working as a journalist. He had a knack for writing. He was a very good writer. And he wrote, I think he started a newsletter, and this is pre-massive internet. So I think internet was around, but not as, or maybe this was before the internet, and it was called Into the Wilderness or something. And so he wrote a newsletter, and he was basically truthing one of the early alternative media guys, and sending these people would sign up to be on this newsletter, and he later found out that a lot of these people who were tracing him and tracking him were actually intelligence, or they were, there was a vested interest of the White House and some of the people in the White House and some of these people in government to try and track him and find out what he was doing and take him down. He was, I want to say, he was sort of, he was stabbed in the back by his fiancée. He was engaged to a woman who was an undercover agent for the CIA, and he later found that she was part of this spying on him specifically. Hey, can you imagine that shit? Like,
yeah, that's terrible.
You fall in love with somebody and you're going to marry him, and you're just with that person, and then you find out that they don't love you. They're just basically using you, and they're spying on you. Not only that, but they're going to turn you in to the government. It's like, gross.
Yeah.
Who could do something like that? You know what I mean? Who could pretend to love somebody and agree to marry them and like be doing shit like that? I just can't even believe that.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. But that's what he said. I mean, if you go watch the documentary Collapse, they do talk about his career and about he goes in. He's a very compelling guy. I mean, if you watch it, it's just like riveting,
Yeah.
And of course, everybody. I mean, in the truth movement, you always get the people that say, "Oh, well, Michael Ruber, he was really an agent. He was da-da-da-da. He was this or that." I don't know. Okay, I don't know nothing about that. But what I do know is that he woke a lot of people up, and he came out and he did speak about the drug running. And that was a fact, and he knew that was true. He woke a lot of people up on the 9/11 thing, because then he I think a lot of people found their awakening through his documentary or his talk that he did about that. And so, I mean, I don't know what happened, and it's sad. I think that he felt that he had to end his life if that's what really would happen. Some people are saying no, but that he was suicided, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't have anything. And friends of his said that they believe that he really did commit suicide. So, just to put that out there, because I wanted to just acknowledge his work, that he was a good, he was somebody that was in our movement, one of the heavies, one of the first to really talk about these really, really dark and heavy issues, without fear, and just as a whistleblower, as somebody who's working. I mean, man, the guy you interviewed last week, Arnie, was a whistleblower. We were talking about how hard that can be, and being he was a nurse or a nurse's aide and refused to get vaccinated, But Michael Rupert, I mean, calling out these guys he's in the police department, and he's got to call out his fellow colleagues and the people, above him and stuff as being drug dealers. I mean, damn.
Yeah.
That's heavy. That's freaking heavy. Like, no wonder they were after him, if that was in fact true, which I believe. How could they not be,
Yeah.
So, just crazy sauce. Crazy sauce.
Crazy sauce?
It's crazy sauce, It's just crazy sauce. So, but he, I mean, he was in LAPD. He died, he was 63 years old, and they said it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I actually wrote to him one time, tried to get him on the show, and he never responded. I don't know if he ever got the message, but I did want to try and interview him after I saw the movie Collapse. But yeah, he wrote a book called Crossing the Rubicon, and he talked about the connection between 9/11 and the peak oil thing. So that's why I thought it was appropriate. I just was thinking when we were talking about peak oil and stuff that it was appropriate to bring up Michael Rupert, because people should just check him out, check out his work. I don't care what you think about him once you've looked into it, but it's worth your time. Check it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that really was disheartening to hear that. It was sad to hear that he died. So.
Yeah. He was a big heavy in our movement. Somebody who was. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, those people though, they really think that they really have like a higher purpose or something. I just.
Right.
Maybe I'm putting them. I mean, but I was going to say maybe I'm putting them on a pedestal, but in my eyes, I know it's not healthy to do this to people, but in my eyes, they deserve to be put up on a pedestal because they sacrifice so much, not only physically but emotionally, mentally, to do that because they, I don't know.
It's true, and I can see. I mean. I don't want to say that I know what happened, but I can see where he would have been very, very depressed, just given his level of knowledge and the things that he had seen go on and the things that had happened to him and the people that, like I mentioned, his fiance stabbing him in the back and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And just, can you imagine how long, you know how long it takes to get over somebody that you're in love with who doesn't love you anymore or who doesn't, and can you imagine if it was like, they were actually spying on you and were
like on top of that. It's just like another level.
I mean, holy crap!
Yeah.
Like, how would you ever get over something like that? It's like no wonder he never married, because I don't think he ever did after that or had any kids. I think he that was it. I mean, but yeah, it's like, who would after that, you know? Crazy. If somebody was doing that crap to you, it's like, I can't even imagine. But yeah, it's just, I want to say, like, when I saw him in the documentary and he was talking about that, because that's when the thing they were saying is like, well, what do you do? Like, is there ever a time where you just don't want to, like, do this, or you just don't want to do it anymore? And he's just like, well, how do you know? I mean, how do you just know things and then just not
know them anymore?
Yeah, you can't just unknow it, and you can't just, like, I mean, you know, he had a really eloquent way of putting it, but I can't remember exactly. I want to do justice to it, but I just say, go watch his documentary, Collapse.
You took the red pill, so once you take the red pill, you can't.
Yeah, and I don't think, you know, and I don't think at, like, any level, I think he just saw it, you know, from having been in an intelligence background, and then having been in the police department, you know, he just was, like, surrounded by it, saturated in it, and then went, oh, okay, this is how it works. Got it. Gotcha. This is how it is. And so once he saw that, you know, he could easily identify false flag like 9/11. He's like, okay, yeah, this is what they did. And his book, I think, connected Dick Cheney to it. And, yeah, I don't know. I haven't read it, but I think that's, if I remember correctly, that's what it said about that. And so, you know, I mean, I don't know. I hope that, you know, he has peace now. I hope it wasn't a hard, painful journey for him in the end there. So, you know.
Oh my God! Say something funny, make me laugh. That was so sad.
I know, it's so sad. Well, how can we not talk about it though? You know,
yeah,
it's like,
no, yeah, we.
Yeah, how can we not bring up, Michael, you know, these people who were these big deals in our movement? It's like, you know, you got to feel something. When I heard that news, I was so like hit me, like, damn, you know, that's heavy.
Yeah, he was one of the first people I watched when I was waking up, so to speak. One of the first films I watched. So.
Right. Yeah, for sure. You know, and yeah. So I don't know. I just say, if you don't know who we're talking about, just check him out and see some of his work. Decide for yourself. You know, you don't have to believe everything he says or follow all his research. But he was a pretty smart guy. I mean, I don't know. I know that for sure. I can't say that he was accurate on everything, but I know he was smart. And so he's and
courageous.
And courageous, and a whistleblower. Author, Crossing the Rubicon, Decline of the American Empire, and At the End of the Age Oil. So, speaking of Michael Rubert, you know, we're talking about free energy. We're talking about alternative sources of energy because we are probably at the end of the oil age, I would say. I think that's probably true.
The oil age. Do you think it's because we're running out of oil, or we're realizing the impact on our planet because we're using oil in the way that we're, like, cultivating it?
I think because we're running out. Because the way that, because I don't, you know, if you follow geopolitics, if you follow, like, what's going on around the world in Syria and in Iran and these places that we're invading, Afghanistan and Iraq and such, these countries in the Middle East, most of whom have oil, and all these political, just from that, it just, the behavior is not of people who are, they seem to be desperate to get their hands on oil. And when I say they, I mean, like, we in the U.S., like our government, you know, and the other Western governments who are out there screwing around and starting wars with these benevolent countries that don't attack us, and yet we're going out and attacking them and trying to find reasons to get them, and putting in intelligence to create, you know, false enemies, these Al-Qaedas or whatever the hell they're creating all the time, these terrorists and whatnot, that, you know, we create through our own CIA, our own intelligence. And so they're putting that out there, and they're making these excuses to go to war with these countries. It seems to me because it's a desperate effort to hold on to the oil. I don't know that for certain because I don't think anybody knows exactly how much is left or how much there is of the oil, you know, across the world. There could be far more than what we know about. But nevertheless, it's like, why are they going after it so hard? Why is it so valuable to our country unless they feel it has scarcity? You know, scarcity builds value, so it seems to be pretty important to them. You know, I don't think that they're just flat out crazy and just wanting to kill, you know, brown-skinned people. I don't think they care, but it's like, I'm not going to do it. But you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't put yourself out there and go through the effort and the work to do it unless they had something to give you, right? I mean, why else would you do it? So it's I don't know. It's so I can't answer that. For sure, because I really don't know how much oil there is. But just the way that I follow geopolitics, I think it feels to me like they really want to control the oil, and there's sort of a desperation to get their hands on it. So why? I guess because we built ourselves or surrounded ourselves around it, this dependency upon it. So now it's really hard to unwind it out of it because we've just, you know, wrapped ourselves around it so much. But as far as the impact on the planet, I doubt it. I don't think they care about that.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Look at it.
I don't know. Because then what about war? Like, what about the impact that has on the planet? You know, and so the other things that they're doing to get the oil, the impact that has on the planet. So, but I mean, I do think that there are people who have invested interest to get us off of oil because they're worried about the impact that has on the planet. But I don't know. You know, some people call peak oil a myth. Some people have said that that's not true, that it's not a finite source. I really don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it runs out. And, you know, I just don't know enough about it to really say. But just their behavior makes it seem like they want it really bad.
Yeah.
And that's why I say that, you know, why else would you be chasing it so hard? You know, it's like, damn, like, you just really want that shit real good, don't you? You know? Well, that's just got to be something going on, you know? So if it's not scarce, then they're certainly acting like it is. But, so I can see where he would draw a connection between 9/11 and the oil crisis. And, you know, we were supposed to be having an oil energy crisis back in the 1970s. But then that was somehow forgotten about, and then we just started using it, like, even more so after that. So I don't know. I really don't. So, but I'm open. Anyone wants to pipe in and give me answers to these questions.
Yeah.
Chat room. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to have, you know, interview suggestions or whatever. Anyone who seems to have the answers to these questions, I'd love to hear about it. And Michael Rupert certainly believed in peak oil. He certainly thought it was running out.
Yeah.
And he was, you know, you see his film Collapse, he certainly believed it. So what about your guest? Did Brandon, what does he think? Did you guys talk about that?
We didn't really talk about peak oil. I asked him if there are any alternatives to oil that, you know, or is it like petroleum-based is it a petroleum-based product, and if there are any alternatives to oil that, you know, can be used, if there are any products that are petroleum-based.
Yeah.
And he was saying, from what he knew thus far about it's not petroleum-based, but you know, if somebody wants to chime in on finding out a way where it's, you know, they can make it where, I mean, or they can make it, what am I trying to say? God, I'm losing my train of thought. Basically, he was saying because it's open source, as far as like manufacturing the core, I think you still have to use oil, like the machines used to make the core, or are you know, need to run on oil. But he was talking about if there's somebody who wants to chime in and figure out a way to make that possible. You know, he's open to that because they're looking for people to engineer and make these things better with low environmental impact. And make them effective, and making them smaller.
Right.
And yeah, so that's wonderful. I think we're going to see some really amazing inventions within the next few years. I mean, I think there are a lot of horrible things that are happening in the world, but there are also a lot of good things too. And it's great to have shows where we're talking about people doing things that are good too, because it's not all bad. Even though it seems like some days, we're just inundated with all this terrible news and events, and we are working our butts off, or either we don't have a job, so we're living in fear of that, and we're just things look gloomy sometimes. But I think the world's not all gloom and doom. There are people that are conscious of what's going on, but they're using their resources and their interests to try and figure out how to stop things from happening or making things better.
Yeah,
so.
Right. Yeah, that's what's impressive about what this guy is doing, because he really seems to be, there aren't that many people who are looking for solutions. Like we talk about in this movement, how there are some people who just sit there and they complain and they rant and they get upset and they, and they just want to be, they're upset, and I understand why they are, but then they kind of stay in that state of like, I'm so angry.
Yeah.
I think anger has a place, and certainly there's no reason that you shouldn't feel angry about the things. They're very upsetting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're just going to stay there, it's like...
It's not going to serve you. You're going to be running around like a hamster in a wheel, basically.
Yeah. It's just a hamster in a wheel, and you're just going to sit there and live in hate, or...
And it's going to eat you up.
Resentment.
It's going to eat you up. Probably give you the cancer. Or,
right.
I said the cancer, I mean cancer.
It'll give you the cancer.
If you get the cancer, it'll give you, stress and weight gain and all these other things. You can't, you can, but you have to decide, if are you going to let it get to a point where it's eating you alive, where you can't be around your friends because you're always paranoid or hateful, or you're going to pushing people away. Now there are people that probably might drop you for being honest because they're uncomfortable. I understand that, but also there's the other side of the story where people are just so angry that they're they're hard to be around.
Right.
Yeah,
precisely. And those people it's going to be very hard for, when you stay in that state, it's going to be very hard for you to be effective to help others and for others to want to listen to you. And it will be, and you might find yourself being very frustrated, like, oh, nobody ever wants to listen. Well, yeah, because you're constantly a downer. And, it's like the Saturday Night Live skit, Debbie Downer, You're Debbie.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, man, Debbie, why do we even invite you to our parties? All you ever do is, bring us down, And so, Debbie Downer, go ahead.
I was going to say there's a way to be truthful to people without bringing them down. So you have to figure out how to talk to people, right? You have to figure out where you stand, too. You have to calm yourself down, and because I think there is a point too when the dots all start to connect about certain things, and there's this rush of panic. It's like, you need to do something now. Like everybody needs, and then that's true, but you can't run around like a chicken with your head cut off. Like you said, you have more focus when you're not panicked and when you're calm and when you have a sense of humor. So I have this friend. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Just like a good, a story kind of that links to that. I have a friend that was in India when she was younger, and she was hiking through the forest with this group, and these beehives were disturbed and attacked like everybody in her group, and like hundreds and hundreds of bees, and she was calm and focused. For some reason, she wasn't scared of bees. She was calm and focused. And she was able to help people, and not one bee stung her because she was calm and focused. And I always thought that's one of the most amazing things, but it's also kind of like you have to remain calm and focused. I'm not saying, like there's a place to get angry, and I get angry and I curse people out, and I'm not saying that it's bad things to get angry again, but like you said earlier, you can't really help people. If you really want to help people, you have to think about what your intention is, right? So if you really want to help people, you know, you have to understand that you can't help them if you're in a state of anger all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Right, exactly, because you're just going to turn them off. You know, they're going to be bummed out by you, and they're not going to be, and they're going to start tuning you out after a little while. I mean, you were talking about when we did that other show, the Souvenir event. He asked us about our awakening, and you brought up that guy that you dated who was totally awake, but who was really negative.
Yeah.
And you know, and it was, but had he come approached you in a positive way and maybe been a little more subtle, you might have listened to him sooner.
I think I would have listened to him. I think I'm open to people. I've always, now that I think about it, I've always been open. I'll listen to what somebody has to say. I'm not going to be like, oh, you have nothing to say, or who are you? Like, I like to listen and hear what people have to say. But he was just and so angry, and which is you gotta wield that to work in your favor. And I tuned him out, and I thought it was crazy. And you know, and if I saw him today, I would apologize and thank him for trying to inform me. I mean, that's where I'm at right now. But but at the same time, I don't think he was necessarily right either, because he was, you know, he was trying to blame me, and just, you know, when you start blaming people for stuff that they're not even aware of, it's not really fair, you know.
No, yeah, totally. Right, exactly. And I think that those of us who have gone through the awakening process, I think, kind of experience going through that at one point or another, where you kind of get like, you do sort of become annoying, and maybe, you know, and you don't even necessarily recognize yourself as doing it, but it's just kind of like, you're just trying to wake people up. You're just recognizing that there's a time crunch, and that, you know, we can't just be fucking around all the time. And so, you know, then people need to start realizing and doing things, and it can be very, very frustrating to try and talk to people about things like, for example, health, and then they're still eating, you know, like you're
still getting chemotherapy,
or they're still eating radioactive Cheetos and drinking diet soda, and then they're going, and I'm just not feeling well, and you're like, yeah. What's in your hand? You know, why are you doing this to yourself? Why you're so horrible and you feel bad. You know, it's like, and I just don't know why, and I blah, 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 blah. But, you know, it can be so frustrating, like, just, you want to just smack them upside the head, and they're like, really? Come on. You know, or other people who, you know, come at you with we've talked about how we handle trolls sometimes on the internet. Right. And, you know, when they come at us and they're just, like, so rude and obnoxious, and we used to get all mad and fight with them and try and, like, give them, you know, we thought that presenting the evidence would make them, you know, see the light.
Here's 1,000 links. Go look them up for yourself. You know.
Right.
And then they'll just be like, they're discredited, or that's been debunked, or that's only anecdotal evidence. Like the 4 or 5 like top lines they use. It's like those, right? Those are the same things they always say. It's funny.
Yeah. It's just, no, I know.
It's like they have like a guidebook they're reading from, and then they're like, I don't know. I tried number 2. Maybe I'll write number 3 and see if that works.
Right. Yeah, I know. And you're just like, but it's just, it doesn't work. Those people don't care, and you know, they're stuck in their own little thing. So we've since stopped, for the most part. We don't engage in that stuff anymore, because we've recognized that it's just suck on our energy, and
it's draining, you know. Mm-hmm. It's draining. But it is fun a little times to send them like crazy pictures.
Right, that's what they're just.
Then they get so mad. They're like, "You're just well." They get like so fed up, and that's like, well, you know, it's because you guys are unmature. You're mature, and you know, I guess you guys can't have a mature conversation. Well, and then
they're just gonna hate you no matter what you do. Yeah. So you might as well just, you know, who cares? And you know, we don't post up entire websites and entire things just to call, you know, these doctors or whatever, scientists or whomever we're trying.
You're gonna call them losers, weren't you?
These losers, and we don't do that. You know, we don't sit there and like devote and spend our time. But these guys, like, you know, with their quack watch and the last one we got into a fight with this dude on the internet, this British dude, Miles, whatever his name was.
Oh, he's a horrible person.
We didn't fight with him. We just sent him kitties with like pictures of kitties and like angry
Guns.
kitties, like, grumpy.
And aliens and people in tinfoil hats. It was good to have a sense of humor about it, too.
Right. So we have this guy, Brandon Garland, on the show. And one more time, say his website.
A little's enough.
Little's enough.
We'll put it in right up.
We'll put it in the write-up, and if we're in the chat room, we'll link it up there too. So, all right, y'all. I think we're just about out